All right, so it's 4:02 Eastern Standard. I'm going to have us go ahead and get started. First, want to give a warm welcome to everybody that is joining us today. This is part 4 of 4 in the early career and student webinar series I've been leading for the Division on Autism and Developmental Disabilities this past year. I can't believe it's a year later and we're already at part 4 of 4, so that's super exciting. But welcome today, to everybody that's on the call. Big welcome and shout out to our panel. I will be thanking them several times throughout the next hour. But we are very excited to have 4 great professionals in the field who come from a range of diverse backgrounds and perspectives to share with everybody on the call today. So with that being said, I'll hop into introductions. So I'm Deidre Gilley. I am an OSEP scholar at Florida State University. I'm a doctoral candidate and I was the prior DADD student rep. I just handed it off to the wonderful Ty, who I'm going to allow to introduce herself, but she's taking over the role for the next 2 years. Ty, would you like to introduce yourself to the crowd?
Sure. Thanks so much, Deidre. Hey, everybody. I'm Ty Williams. I am currently a doctoral student at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and I am also an OSEP scholar. And as Deidre said, I'm the current DAD student representative. So I'm here to not only represent you guys, but to also serve you. So if you need anything, feel free to reach out. We're so happy to have you in our seminar today.
All right, so do a quick overview of the agenda. This was described in the advertisement that went out for this webinar. But today, like I just mentioned, we're going to hear from our panelists. They're going to provide their own personal testimonies of their early career and how their essentially career has developed over these past however many years that they've been in the field, as they each have a wide range of different amounts of time. So they'll also share some resources and advice throughout that section. Then we have a short time period of pre-structured questions that were generated from everybody who registered. So we had over 80 people register for today's webinar. And so I used the questions that you guys filled out or didn't fill out to create some pre-structured questions. And then we'll have time for the audience to engage. So you'll be able to unmute or put questions in the chat. And we'll ask we'll put our panelists on the spot and have them answer some questions from us. So I'm going to hand it back over to Ty to do a quick DADD plug, and then we're going to jump into the deep end all together.
All right. So first of all, again, I want to welcome everybody, both those of you who are already members of DAD and those of you who might be consider being members of DAD. So I just want to share with you some of the benefits of membership in our organization. So one of them is that you have access as a member to some awesome journals. So we have Focus, we have the ETAD, we have the DAD online journal. Not only that, you also get discounts to our conferences. Not only that, but we also have coming up some discounts if your CEC membership or your DAD membership is coming due. Keep an eye out because we'll have some information on discounts related to that. One of the reasons that I joined DAD and have found it to be my professional home is because we have amazing opportunities and events. Not only do you have the opportunity to network with some amazing students and professionals, faculty members, but we also have things like this webinar. We have community chats. If you are a student now and engaged in writing, we have an awesome student writing accountability group that just started up today. But then we also have access to information through our social media platforms. And then you can also be recognized for your amazing work through our awards program. In addition to that, there are also great resources such as our YouTube channel. And this video, a video of this webinar will be posted after we conclude the webinar today. But then you also have access to things like DAD Express. And then you have all the wonderful benefits that come with being a member of CEC. So if you haven't joined already, we have a QR code here that we'd love to have you join us as members of DAD. And if you are not able to jump on that now because we're about to start the actual webinar with our esteemed guests, we will post this on YouTube and you'll have access to that QR code later on. All right, thanks, Deidre. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Ty, for doing our DADD plug. Hold on one second. I have a okay. So I had somebody just request to record this webinar on their own. Feel free to do that. But also, as Ty just mentioned, All of our community chats, webinars, everything like that does go on our DADD YouTube channel. I was going to show that channel at the end today so that you can access all of our recordings. It's a great repository of not only, like I said, those webinars and community chats, but there's some pretty awesome short 5-minute evidence-based practices video, other resource videos that you can utilize. I'll show that at the end of today's webinar. So moving on, I'm going to do a very brief introduction of our panelists here today. So we were supposed to have 5 here. We currently have 4. Dr. Wexler might be joining in just a moment, but right now we have 4 of our panelists on. All, like I mentioned, come from very diverse and different backgrounds and experiences that they'll be able to share regarding their early career. We have Dr. Courtade, who's at the University of Louisville, Dr. Wakeman, who's at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, Dr. Duclos, who is whoop whoop, a Florida State person as well, and Dr. I meant to ask you how to pronounce your name. Can you pronounce your last name for me correctly?
I certainly can. It's Dueker.
Dueker, thank you. I did not, my first name gets butchered all the time. I did not want to do that to you on our webinar. So thank you, Dr. Dueker. And he is at Ball State University. So huge shout out to our panel for not only taking the time to develop this for everybody here today, but also spending the time being here, sharing about their experiences. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into the panelist testimonies and then get into those questions.
Hi, my name is Ginevra Courtade. As Deidre mentioned, I'm at the University of Louisville. I was trying to remember all the ways that took me here and got me here. I'm originally from New York State, and I didn't put all the degrees listed here, but I have a master's in special education from there. I never actually taught in New York State. I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, to get a teaching job because they were very readily available. And so I started there. About my first or second year in, I started a second master's degree in curriculum and instruction. And then I was scoring alternate assessment portfolios for some additional money during the summer. And I saw Diane Browder, who I think a lot of you might know, stand up, raise her hand, and announce that UNCC had this doctoral program that they were starting and that it would be funded. So Deidre and Ty both mentioned that they're OSEP scholars, and I am also an OSEP scholar. So I got my degree at UNCC. I worked there as a research associate. While I was doing my work, I went part-time, which is a little different than most people, instead of full-time. Also, when I first started the program, it had 2 separate tracks. One was an administration track and one was a higher ed track. And I was 150% sure that I wanted to go into administration, which is not the way that I ended up. So once I started getting into the research and doing applied research in classrooms, I found out it was really, really something that I enjoyed. So I went that route. I worked at West Virginia University for 2 years as an assistant professor. And then I moved to the University of Louisville, and you can see that I've been here for quite a long time. So I gave you a little background about kind of my career trajectory, but I'll break it up now by research, teaching, and service. My current research agenda was established in my doctoral program. So I started, and my dissertation is on, and I'm still working on, academic interventions for students with moderate severe disabilities. Throughout my career, I've been a part of, not only as a scholar, but as a PI, some OSEP funded grants, including a state personnel development grant, professional development grant. I was a PI on a 325K, which supported undergrad students, a couple of 325Ds, which are the leadership grants, and I saw at least one of our scholars here. And most of the publications and presentations that I've worked on have been either around the academic interventions themselves or teacher preparation of those academic interventions. As far as teaching is concerned, when I first started, I taught a majority of the core courses in our moderate severe program. As I moved along, I created some new courses, created some new programs, worked on program revisions, kind of can't get away from that. I've taught students at all levels, undergrads, grads. Mostly now I'm doing doctoral seminars, which I love. I've advised at all levels too. So at first undergrads and grads, and now I'm serving mostly on doctoral committees. As far as service, there is much service to be done, and you can do it at any number of levels. So I'll talk in a minute about what's too much service, but you can do service at the department level, college, state, local, professional. I've moved from more of the department level to the state and professional level and the university level too. One of my big commitments is to mentor junior faculty. I'm also a journal editor. I've had the chance to review for grant panels for IES grants and NSF grants. And I've been involved in a number of professional organizations, first as a committee member, and then moving on to roles like chair, secretary, committee chair, where I can see Deidre and Ty going in the future. And these are just some recommendations, and I think that my colleagues and I will probably overlap with what we're telling you. My first is find your fit. I have doctoral students that are applying for jobs right now, and it's really difficult because they don't all come out at one time. You might have an offer from one, and then you see another position open up that you think you really like. So what I mean by find your fit is think about not just, is this the R1 job I want to go to? What's good for my family? Do I want to live in that area of the country? But always keep in mind your first job out, and maybe even your second job, it may not be the place that you stay. Some people are lucky and they do, but it's okay for you to move on if you decide that was not your fit. You don't have to stay there just because you think it looks bad. Hopping from job to job is not good every year, but there's no reason that you can't move if you don't feel like you found your fit right away. Good mentors are key. So I'm sure that most of you have great mentors at your university. So be sure to keep working with them and find yourself some good mentors at the university that you're going to. It's important that you ask if there's a solid mentoring program at the place that you're going to, because it's really hard to start somewhere where you don't know anyone and you don't know the ins and outs. So try to find that good mentor. Teaching, I would say, work within your local schools. That's a question I would ask. How close is the university's relationship with the local schools? And not just for research purposes, because we need to be giving to the schools, not just coming in to say, hey, can I do some research in your classroom? It's what is it? That's the service piece. What is it that I can do to help you? Service, I mentioned some, but not too much, especially at the beginning. You will get offered a lot of service opportunities, but you need to be careful of your time, and a good mentor can help you decide what that looks like. And then finally, for research, I would suggest networking within and outside of your university. Of course, you're going to network within your own department, but then outside of your department, in your college, maybe across the university, but keep your ties outside of the university too. And GADD is a good place for that networking and to have those research networks outside of the university.
Hi, I'm Shawnee Wakeman. I'm a clinical professor at the University of North Carolina in Charlotte. I've been at Charlotte for 19 years. I graduated in 2005 from Charlotte as well, and also started out as a research associate. I, like Ginevra, thought I was going to go back to the school district, that I was going to be an EC director. That was my plan. And then I got to the university and kind of had the same issues that that Ginevra did, and kind of thought that this is a great place. And I really liked the innovation. I really liked the collaboration and the work. I also liked not being yelled at. So that was a bonus that, that doesn't really have a lot at the university. So I was a research associate on, again, Dr. Browder's alternate assessment grant to start with, and then a clinical position came open. I was kind of stuck that I needed to stay in the Charlotte area, the region, because I'm married. I had young children at the time. My husband had a really good job. They didn't want to leave. We didn't want to uproot the children out of their schools and so forth. And so when the clinical position came open at my university, they don't necessarily hire folks into tenure track lines right out of the program. And so a clinical line was going to be my best bet if it was a possibility. And I was fortunate enough to get that position. So I became a clinical assistant professor in 2008. At that point, and I'll get to this in a little bit, at that point, we did not have a promotion pathway for a clinical line at the university in the College of Ed. And so our dean, who happened to be one of my professors in my master's degree, we had a meeting, and I asked, is this a possibility? Can I develop a pathway for promotion for the clinical folk? And she was like, knock yourself out. So she never said no to me, which was something that was really, really wonderful, because it really created an opportunity that we were able to generate and then get approval through the college, a pathway for promotion. So I was promoted in 2014, and then again to clinical professor in 2022, which is my current role. So my career growth, again, I began as that research associate, and then created that reappointment and promotion timeline, that clinical line. I was supported to that. I will always be in a contract. I will never have tenure at the university. So I will always be in a clinical line if I stay in my current position. And now I'm too old, and I will stay in my current position because I'm not moving. Teaching is the bread and butter of clinical lines. Many places it's a 3-3, a 4-4. Some colleges are only teaching colleges, and so if in a clinical position, you will be a heavy teaching load, and that is the bread and butter. So if you want to be if you love teaching, if teaching is your gig, a clinical line is a great place to be, because you will spend most of your time teaching. I am fortunate enough, again, at the university, that we're allowed course buyouts in a clinical role. They're possible. I teach classes, and that was something I had to check on, by the way. So that's something to check to see if you're in a clinical line, if you get research dollars, if you get funding, will they allow you to have course buyouts? So I teach undergraduate classes. I'm the undergraduate advisor. That's my favorite role. I love my undergrad students. I supervise student teachers, some semesters, and some semesters I don't. I like that as well. That gives me my administrator kind of fix for what I wanted to do. But I teach undergrad master's candidates as well as PhD candidates. Again, my department, they're kind enough to let me or to ask me. They've asked me to teach the PhD class this past semester, and Lucky Ty was in one of my classes. I don't know if she thought it was lucky, but Ty was in my class. Anyway, so research, support early in my career. I always knew that I wanted to be a researcher, even in a clinical line. Again, when I was teaching a 4-4, I knew I wanted to do research. So far, I've been able to bring about $6 million, a little over now that, to $6 million to Charlotte. I look at my dollars that way, about how much money am I actually bringing to the university. I've been on big projects. I've been on several big technical assistance centers that have been over $20 or $25 million, but I haven't brought all of those dollars to Charlotte. So I have gotten internal grants. Those are always at every university, are internal grants. I have been the PI on federal grants, as well as some subawards on other grants through IES and OSEP and so forth, and some ECAC grants and things like that. So university service, I have had an evolution and exclusion. As a clinical faculty, you're not allowed to serve on some of the things. They're just because they make tenure decisions about folks, and so I'm not allowed to serve on those roles. But I am I am permitted to serve and do serve. I'm a committee, I'm on the IRB. I've served on the University Faculty Council, the College Faculty Council, and so forth. CAPE, of course, I get CAPE because I teach so many classes, so I'm always on CAPE, and so forth. So my recommendations on the next slide that you'll get to see are your career growth. So what can you do? Ask during your interview what's possible. Do your job description really well. Whatever your job description you agree to it, do it really, really well, because that last bullet is really important. Become the person that the department needs, and tenure will never be a problem for you. I always have a contract. They're not going to take my contract away, because now I'm the old person in the department and I have the historical knowledge and I have all those kind of things. But I also encourage you to be innovative. Don't just take your job description and say, this is the box I live in. You don't have to live in that box. Think outside the box. Show them what, do your job description well, start small, show them what you got, do it really well, and they won't say no to you too often. I've been told no twice, and it's by the same guy in the graduate school, and he's retiring. So I'll go to the graduate school whenever he leaves and ask those questions again. But be innovative. Don't just think that this has to be your box.
Dr. Wakeman, can you share with everybody what you meant by CAPE, just for those that might not know?
Sure. That is the accreditation body for education, for our education programs, and we have, every university has to go through CAPE accreditation to be able to award degrees and teaching license.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm up. I'm Dr. Scott Dueker, and I'm so grateful to be part of this panel. I started out in more of an ABA aspect, right? I was a board certified behavior analyst and decided that I wanted to go back and get my doctorate. Although let's back up just a second. This is actually my second career. Okay. I started out managing warehouses and distribution centers long time ago. You can tell from the Santa Claus beard here that I'm a little older. But thanks to the Great Recession of 2008, I got the opportunity to change my career and actually find my passion, which was, as it turns out, teaching. And I got to there through ABA, got my master's degree in ABA, became a board certified behavior analyst, ran a clinic, decided that I wanted to go back and get my PhD because I wanted to teach. And I want to teach ABA. Well, so I get to Ohio State and find out that actually I like special ed too. And so that's where I graduated, and I got my tenure track gig here at Ball State, which is an R2. And I teach ABA and special ed. Now, I chose Ball State for a couple of reasons. One, that's where I got my master's degree, so it's familiar to me. But two, because it is an R2. There's a good split between teaching and research. And while I love research, it is, for me, it's not the be all end all. I enjoy teaching just as much. And so there's a nice balance there for the R2. So anything's possible with a second career, right? So next. So career trajectory. Once I figured everything out, once I got my stuff together, right? My research agenda was sort of created in my doctoral program, right? I started out, I was focused on functional living skills for moderate to severe disabilities using video modeling, video prompting, right? Video technology. Well, about two-thirds of the way through my doc program, I discovered math. Not that I'd never known math, but how interesting I found math. And so that during my doc program, my focus changed to math interventions using video technology, right? And that's where I am today, right? And so that continues. I'm continuing focusing on that, particularly early numeracy, that's where I'm headed. I apply for grants. I've had some internal stuff here, but again, I'm literally within the first few years of my tenure track here. So I keep applying, keep getting those rejections and the feedback and reapplying, and that's the game, right? I disseminate my research. I publish. I've got several articles with my research that I published with other colleagues and my graduate students that I have. So that's that part of it, right? That's 1/3 of what I do. Teaching is kind of my love, though, right? I'm a content specialist for a master's degree course in our ABA program, meaning I put all the content together, set it up in Canvas, which is our LMS, and let the instructors take off on it, right? And I kind of manage that content for everybody. Dr. Wakeman mentioned about the course load, and for an R2, it's typically 3 courses. I'm down to teaching 1 course because of buyouts and director type duties, which always comes off. I teach at the undergraduate level in special ed and doctoral level in special ed, and then in the graduate level in ABA. So I'm all over the place, but I love my special ed courses. But my undergrad is a math course, and my doctoral courses are both on behaviorology and universal design for learning. So 2 things I really love. But create and revise courses. The math course that I teach was something I created for our department because we didn't have one. And so that's been successful the past few years. And right now, she mentioned CAPE, and I'm working on accreditation for ABA for our program as well with a team of other people. So that accreditation can be a wild beast. So, be careful if you sign up to do that stuff with your department. Like everybody else, service is something that I do. Departmental, college, university, professional, you name it, I'm out there. I was the director of our doc program for a few years. Now I'm the director of our undergraduate program in ABA, which is a much larger program, and along with size comes, administrative stuff. I do reviews for journals. I'm on a few boards there. And then I'm also in professional organizations, working here with Dad on one committee, and then I'm also part of ISET. So I'm going to throw that one out there too. But be involved. It's a good way to make contacts and get to know people. So next. So here's my recommendations, right? Know what you want to do, right? And some people come into their doc programs having an idea, but not really. And it's okay to change that, right? I knew I wanted to teach at the collegiate level when I was in my doc program. I knew that's where I was going to go. But I didn't know exactly what that looked like, right? If I wanted to do an R1, an R2, or a heavy teaching focus, I wasn't sure. That developed during my program, talking with my mentor and my dissertation chair. Know where you want to be. Are you restricted geographically? I kind of was, right? My family is here in Indiana. My wife's family is in Ohio. So we wanted to be pretty close. There were opportunities on the far side of the country, the south side of the country that I, looked at. But know where you want to be, right? And then examine the culture of where you're applying, right? Before you get into it, know what the people, know what it looks like, right? Who are those people? Are they, is it a stable faculty? I mean, are they turning people over a lot? And if so, why, right? Do they have a compatible philosophy as a university, as a department, to what you believe, right? And that's going to make that transition a little bit easier. After your hire, and you'll discuss this during the hiring process as well, but what are your expectations? What are the expectations of you, right? Do they fit with what you think the expectations should be, or what you're able to give, right? What kind of opportunities are there for you to grow? This has been mentioned a couple of times, so I'm just going to, back this up a little bit. Get to know your colleagues, right? For nothing else, social connections, right? Because a lot of times it's going to be someplace new for you, right? You're not going to be staying at Charlotte like Dr. Wakeman did, but you're going to be going to a different university where there's new people and you may not know anybody. Those social connections are important, but they can also be good for research collaboration, which is important for promotion and tenure, and teaching collaboration, which, you're coming into new classes that you probably never taught exactly the same way, but probably have some experience with the content. So getting to know people and who may have taught the class before can be beneficial to you as an instructor as well. But manage your expectations, right? Keep that work-life balance, right? I know if you're going on the tenure track and you're wanting to get promoted and everything like that, there's this mindset that, oh, I've got to do everything. I've got to be everything to everybody so that I can get that promotion, right? Don't do that. That leads to burnout, right? Work-life balance, find it. It's you'll find it at some point. Hopefully it doesn't make you find it, you'll find it on your own, right? But know what the promotion looks like and what it takes to get there if that's your goal. So that's it. I'll leave it at that.
Greetings, everyone. I am Duclos, and I serve as an assistant in research here at Florida State University within the Florida Center for Reading Research. I am close at heart to being a practitioner. I share both a personal and professional experience in the field of special education. I actually have a younger sister with autism, so for me, this work is closely related to some of the challenges and triumphs that I've experienced, serving as her advocate, as well as preparing her with, equipping her with the necessary tools to be successful and transition into adulthood. I have served students with disabilities and their families collectively for over 20 years. I've worked within all levels of special education. That includes the local school level, the district level as an ESC director. At the state, the Florida Department of Education, I served as a educational program director, and now within the university sector as a researcher and facilitating certain projects within the research practice partnerships here. So I continue to collaborate and work towards improving research policy and practice in special education. In regards to teaching, my teaching experience, I was a former special education teacher for about 12 years in Broward County Public Schools. I then transitioned on to the district level, again, then the state level in a leadership capacity, and now within the university sector. I actually have the privilege of working with our graduate students. I teach both undergraduate and graduate level courses here at Florida State University, working with those prospective special education teachers, those that are going to enter into the field. Most recently, I've leveraged the knowledge and experience that I've attained over time and started my own business. And so I currently work as the CEO and founder of an education consultant company where we work to build the capacity of other in-service teachers, those that are currently in the field, as well as the educational leaders that serve them. So that's really exciting. Charting my own path and have taken a quote unquote non-traditional approach to leveraging some of the tools and resources. In regards to research and service, I did share with you that I serve as an assistant in research, and a lot of that work deals primarily with community engagement, which is perhaps one of the most notable and positive aspects of my job right now. I get to collaborate on several projects that focus particularly on community engagement, and I really enjoy this role because I get to engage with all key stakeholders of the school community. That includes superintendents as well as administrators. You have parents, you have the actual educators, as well as those community-based organizations. So I work alongside them to really build their capacity and uptake the research that our universities are producing so that they can utilize it for future decision-making. Some additional things that I collaborate on or work with in terms of research and service, I supervise clinicals. Some of our students that go out into the field and they're working on their in-house observations, their teaching observations, field experience. And then I most recently had the opportunity to serve as an advisor on the committee, one of the dissertation committees. So that was interesting. Next slide, please. All right, so here I thought about my own personal experience to charting this path, this non-traditional path, and wanted to really give some nuggets of knowledge as to how you all can start to kind of shape your own trajectory and to what that's going to look like. So thinking about my own experience, I definitely have found that there is power in partnership. Collaboration is going to be key for you as you enter into some of these higher ed roles. Ensuring that you're building connections, as well as embracing interdisciplinary approaches for collaboration. Very important. Another strategy that I want to share with you all is knowing your role. So going beyond just your basic roles and responsibilities of a particular position. It's an assumption that you would already know that, but going beyond that and really establishing your research agenda as early as possible, as well as being able to identify problems of practice and research interests that you are passionate about, as well as how you want to contribute to the field. Another nugget of knowledge I want to leave you all with is don't lose touch. So oftentimes me collaborating with all key stakeholders from top down, bottom level and up, I have observed and get to see the different perspectives on key findings and research and literature. As you move up the chain, I encourage you to stay connected to the field, really understanding and knowing what's the latest research and what are the latest best practices within your field, and remain a lifelong learner. Seek mentorship, as some of my peers alike have already mentioned, ensuring that you're finding experienced researchers or professors who can serve as mentors and guide your research journey is critical for success. I would also leave you with presenting and publishing your work. So don't let it just sit on the shelf, so to speak, and get cataloged, but actually get those research findings and that information out there to those that need it the most so that they can use your research to improve practice and for their future decision-making. And then lastly, remember to take care of yourselves. Prioritize self-care. Make time for activities that recharge you, seek support when needed, and maintain a healthy work-life balance. Thank you.
All right, so another thank you to our panelists for sharing about their career experiences so far, how they, how their trajectory has changed and whatnot. So Ty and I have, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have a couple pre-structured questions to present to the panel to get a little bit more information from them, and for us who are here wanting to soak up their wealth of knowledge, learn a couple more pieces of advice from them. These pre-structures questions came directly from your all's registration. So we tried to condense down the questions y'all put on your registration into a couple themed questions, and then we'll open up to the audience. So feel free to go ahead and, as Ty just said in the chat box, go ahead and start putting some questions in the chat if you'd like for them to be part of the audience Q&A. Otherwise, I'll ask the first question to the panel. Whoever would like to, whichever one of you guys would like to share out, feel free. We do have several questions to ask, and then the audience will ask questions as well. So I know you all gave us an overview of your career and kind of touched on this a little bit, but I would love to hear a little bit more about how your career path has developed over time. Did you know automatically what the career trajectory was going to look like, or were you navigating that road as it was happening? Can you tell us a little bit about how that looked for you throughout, especially your early career, but as you've progressed throughout the different milestones of your career?
I can jump in on that, Deidre. What I did mention, now that I'm thinking about it, this is a little ironic, but I mentioned that, and Shawnee did too, that I wanted to go down this administration path when I first started, and I wanted to be a special ed director, and Shawnee and I may have been going after the same job in our heads, but then I really got into the research piece, really liked being in classrooms, doing that applied research. I did some supervision. I still do supervision. But at one point, I think starting around 2015, I was asked to be assistant department chair. And then I was department chair for, I think, 5.5 years. So my career path did take that little twist with administration, and I found it interesting, and I learned a lot. But in that time that I was in an administrative role, I decided that that wasn't where I wanted to be. So twice I've decided that. So it's okay to change your mind. I didn't want to go, I didn't want to go for an associate dean's position. I wanted to get back. It was hindering me from being in classrooms and teaching and doing my research. So that's something that again, I've navigated twice, and I'm back to I want to do my research and teach.
I'll throw something out here. And again, I'm still early in the throes of this, but I because of my previous career as an administrator, as a manager of people and departments and things like that, I know that my heart is not in being department chair or a dean or something like that. Yes, that's typically the trajectory that I've seen in my department, right? People will go in to be a chair. We've lost um, a couple of faculty to dean positions and associate dean positions and things like that. But that administrative piece is just not fun for me, right? It's yes, I get some of that with some of the service that I do as like right now the chair of our personnel selection committee, that whole administrative background stuff. So for me, it's about knowing exactly what I want to do and where I want to go. And that while it's evolved a little bit, it's still pretty much focused on the teaching and doing the research to support the teaching, right? So I guess one thing, what I'm trying to say is don't get sucked into the idea that administration is the be all end all. If you're when you're talking to other, your jobs, the people that you're interviewing with, they're going to talk about the career trajectories and things like that. Stick to what you want to know at least initially, or what you want to do initially, and then see how that evolves over time, because it probably will.
All right, that leads perfectly into our next question. So I hear you guys say that you started off with one idea of what you wanted to do, and over time that's changed. Or in the case of Dr. Dueker, he's like, yeah, I know exactly what I want to do and what I don't want to do. Are there jobs or career paths in the field that are the most underserved, or have the greatest need that we should consider once we obtain our graduate degrees? And again, that's open to anyone.
I would, I'll just say on this that I think you have to make a decision, and I think several of my colleagues said, find out where you want to be. And you have to figure out where you want to be, because there are different needs in the field of education that are different than higher ed. Many of you probably have come in to get your PhD to think about a higher ed position, and there are positions and different types of roles in higher ed, obviously, that you can do. Because one of the things you need to do is get your foot in the door. Right. So if you want to be at a place, or if you want to roll, then there are ways to do that. And you can do that. We have, you could do supervision of student teaching that's, and we have an office for that department. There are different roles that you could do. You could be a recruiter, you could do, but you have your PhD. So you likely want to be in a faculty role at some level if you get to higher ed. But if you don't want to go to higher ed and you want to do things outside either in the school district community, our colleague at Florida State has gone through this system at all kinds of levels and has ended up and now having her own business. And so I think it's being open to the jobs and the opportunities that are out there, because once you identify a need area, then you can fill that need in a variety of ways.
All right, so we have one more question for our pre-structured. Dr. Courtade, were you about to jump in on that last one? So we've got one more, and then we'll open it up for the audience. We've already got some people populating the chat, so I want to try and get to those. So our last one, I know that multiple, if not all of you guys, mentioned work-life balance in one, shape, fashion, or form as a piece of advice, which I'm sure Ty and others on the call can agree that we hear that a lot. But it can be hard no matter what. So can you all tell us a little bit more about how maybe that work-life balance has changed throughout the course of your career? Were there points in time, I'm sure, that was better than others? What lessons have you learned that for those of us that are going to be getting into our early career, for me, for example, in just a couple months, what advice can you all share about that change throughout the course of your career?
I'll be happy to start on this one because when I started my career, I had 2 small children. If you go back to my slide, you'll see my little kids, and then they're big kids now. And that has really, my family situation has changed a lot. And in the beginning, we are a group that if you have your computer, you can always work, regardless of the time of day. You know, you can always work, and you can't do that to yourself. You can't. So you either have to say on Saturdays, I'm not working. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I will work on Sunday, or I will work on Saturday. I'm not going to work on Sunday. Somewhere you have to find a way that you can be present with in your social life, in your family, whatever that structure looks like. You have to be present in that because they are the most important things. Your work will go away. At someday, I'm going to retire. And then, you know, you have to have a plan for those kind of things, and you still want to have those kind of relationships. Those relationships are very, very important. So has it changed? I used to work all the time. I used to teach 3 summer classes and have a full-time job, and I had little kids. And I was like, yes, I'm going to do it all. You have got to find a way to make things work, because otherwise you will run yourself into the ground. And it's really easy to do, and we do it to ourselves. Maybe one of the only professions where we say, yes, I'm going to review all those manuscripts, and yes, I'm going to write that publication, and yes, I want to be part of that grant. And yet, no, you have to find a way to say no and be okay that it's not a ding against you if you say no along the way. But in your career, you have to evolve into what can I actually say no to? And that has changed. I'm much better at saying no now.
And on that note, I'm gonna piggyback off of Dr. Wakeman. I am much better at saying no, even in this current semester, actually relieving myself of some priorities after they have ended. Of course, I made sure that if I committed to it, that I stuck it out. But in reflection, I won't be doing that again. Lesson learned. Don't stretch yourself too thin. Mind your yeses, but also mind your nos. And having some alignment, definitely self-reflection, ways that you self-regulate, practice self-care. For me, it's faith and fitness. For others, it's, you know, you have all different types of strategies out there, but sticking true to your values and your core, and again, having some alignment with your end goal or vision will help you stay the course.
And I'm just gonna say thank you to Dr. Wakeman, because she pretty much said what I was gonna say, right? It took me a few years, but I finally said, Saturdays, I'm done. That's my day, right? It took me a little while, and like I said, I'm still an assistant professor. I haven't gone up for tenure promotion yet. So I had the mindset that, oh, I've got to do all this. I've got to say yes. I've got to say yes. And that's not the case. You can only fill up so much time before your body tells you it's time to stop. And so I didn't hit that point. My body didn't tell me to stop. I just said enough. And now Saturdays are mine, and half of Sundays. And that's been a great thing for me. I'm still as productive during the week as I had been before. But now I've got time for me and my family and my dogs.
Dr. Courtade, would you like to add anything on that one before we transition to the audience? All right. So
No,
with
all
that
good
being,
advice.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said it was all very good advice.
Cool. All right. So transitioning to the audience, I know there's a couple questions in the chat. I'll just read the most recent one, and then we'll have if you'd like to unmute or Ty, you know, if you want to pick one out from some of the ones that have been dropped, feel free. But otherwise, if you don't want to unmute, guys, feel free to drop things in the chat. So I'm just going to read the most recent one from Nancy Young, who wrote, if you are geographically bound due to family, etc., as mentioned by the panelist, what job types do you see as solid options to consider if there are no other colleges near where you live?
And so I'll jump in, and then maybe Dr. Dueker can also jump in on this one, because it really is us that talked about those kind of things. Why not? You know, I got a clinical job. I also got a research, and I started in a research job, right? The research associate. So if you're near a university and they're pretty productive, there are going to be some research opportunities out there that you could be a part of those kind of communities. And even if it is soft money, and soft money is not like a contract, not committed. You can live on soft money. You can find ways to engage at the university, because that kind of keeps you relevant in what's happening in the field of higher ed. You can always adjunct. Every university probably hires adjuncts. They probably need them, and that to teach a class is really, really important as well. You can supervise student teachers. In the spring of every year, we always have to hire supervisors to supervise our student teachers because we have so many of those. So there are little roles that you can take that might lead into a big one, because once you make a connection at the university, then you're going to be the person on the front. If you do a really good job in those roles, you're the person in the front of their mind to say, hey, this is coming up, or this is, and you might want to reach out to like the department chairs or, you know, the folks in that thing to say, hey, I'm available, and send your resume and say that I'm, you know, if you need folks, I'm here to do these kind of things. Here are my experiences. So I would, any of those are ways to get your foot in the door and then build from there geographically.
And I think that's great advice. I was a little unique, and this goes to the question that Elaine put in the chat. What if you're a BCBA? I was a BCBA, and one of my options, if I couldn't find something in my geographic restriction, which was about 6 hours from Columbus, Ohio, in just about any area, one of my options was to go back into clinical ABA, right? I could go back and be a clinical director. I could be a director of operations or whatever they happen to be. It's a little different as a PhD with a BCBA certification, because you can't bill more than you could if you had just your master's degree. So there's no necessary benefit to getting the PhD other than more of those advanced upper level clinical positions, right? But I was perfectly happy to go do that in the midterm, and then find, like Dr. Wakeman mentioned, adjunct positions where I could actually be teaching, right? And then transition into it from there, to get your name out there. I think that's definitely a viable option.
And don't just think about just the one university adjunct at, because there are online courses all across the country. We had folks here in Charlotte teaching online classes for Texas A&M and things. So don't just limit yourself to like that university. There are adjuncts all across the country that can teach online.
We're the same way. Our adjuncts teach at multiple places. Yeah.
Dr. Duclos, not to put you on the spot, but I know you talked about it in your testimony, but would you mind sharing about your transition after getting your PhD into these roles that were not higher ed at first? And share some insight there about, those experiences that maybe if you don't go directly into higher ed, there are other options to consider?
Oh, absolutely. Within the district level, served as a ESC director. That's where I was supervising school leaders as well as those special education teachers for Broward County Public Schools. And then shortly after that, I transitioned to the state level where I served as a education program director. And so within the Bureau of Exceptional Student Education for the state of Florida, I served in a leadership capacity there after obtaining my doctorate degree. So there are other chartered paths that you can definitely take if not prior to higher education, before transitioning. So, and I would love to, if there's a particular person that wants, more information about options, I would love to serve as a thought partner, after the call has concluded.
Thank you, Dr. Duclos. And with that being said, I know questions went by really quickly, but it is 4:56, and I want to respect everyone's time on the call as well, especially of our panelists who spent a great deal of time preparing this webinar with me and Ty today, as well as, again, thank you for their time for being here. As Dr. Duclos just mentioned, before I talk about announcements in just a second, how she offered to continue the conversation, I do want to put all of our panelists' contact information on the screen for you guys if you'd like to reach out to them. I didn't ask them to share their emails first, but I know they are Googleable, so I went ahead and put their emails on here for you guys. Feel free to reach out and continue conversations with them. They have vast experience and knowledge to share with everybody on the chat. I know, as you can tell, I reached out to every one of them and begged them to be part of this webinar, and they said yes. So they were thoughtful of their yes and joined us today. I did highlight Ty down in the bottom because she is now the new student rep. She'll be taking over all things student related, an early career for DADD. So she's a great person to have in your back pocket in your corner. And with that being said, before I show the YouTube channel and then we all say our final goodbyes, I do want to highlight just a couple DADD, the Division on Autism and Developmental Disabilities announcements. So first, DADD, we are having our DEIJ liaisons. They're in the next round of, if you want to be involved in our diversity committee and be a liaison related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, that initiative going on within our organization. Scan that QR code, copy that link down, feel free to apply for that. Additionally, the Council for Exceptional Children, which is our, our grandfather organization, we're a subdivision. That conference is coming up in March. And if you happen to be attending that, there will be an all socials night at the conference where you can go meet people, network, collaborate, that kind of thing, where all of the subdivisions are going to come together. So that's super exciting. To my knowledge, that's one of the first times something like that's happened at the conference. So keep an eye out for that. And then as Ty already teased about it at the beginning, there are membership discounts. So if you do want to join CEC and DAD, there are current discounts going on, which you can contact our membership chair, contact us to help share that. But if you wait just a little bit longer, they'll be running additional specials, and there's always specials around the conference time to get people plugged in. So with that being said, as we round our last moment here, I do want to screen share and show our YouTube channel. And then that'll be our time for today. As Ty mentioned again at the beginning of the webinar, this recorded webinar is accessible on our YouTube channel along with our other webinars. So if you go to YouTube and you just type in Division on Autism and Developmental Disabilities, you'll find, for example, the job search process was a part 3 in the series, but you'll also find the other community chats. You'll find those research and evidence-based practice videos that I talked about, all kinds of resources here that you guys can use, in all of our free and spare time. But with that being said, thank you so much again to the panel. Ty, thank you for collaborating with me and making this possible. Everybody, thank you for attending. Reach out to us and let's continue this conversation. But otherwise, that's all we've got all we've got for you on this Monday afternoon. Have a great week. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.